Culture Interrupted, produced by Cognitive Rise Productions. What is culture? How we observe and celebrate, how we care makes us a people upholding traditions built from our morals and experiences and values that we all have in common. Culture is how we share in the experience of life. Culture is how we celebrate life. What is happening in the cannabis industry? What are the changes and effects being felt? With regulation upon us, it is imperative that innovators remain compelling in action towards the ultimate goal, which is moving into a realm of highest quality standards and guidelines focused on wellness, harmony, education. Culture Interrupted is honored to present Joshua Freeman.
I've been cultivating cannabis for 30 years, a little over 30 years. My name is Joshua Freeman, also known as Silverback Gorilla in the industry, founder of Grow Illa Goods and Roots and Harmony Farms. I cultivate cannabis and enjoy it for its sacrament and medicinal purposes. I believe it's very important that we keep our roots to our culture, if you will. As we progress further into this legalization, I'm seeing some of it get watered down. And I think that that's a really good question to bring up, is how important is community and culture into this community, actually. So I think it's really important to know where you come from, and I think it's going to be a big place of where we go. I really enjoy circling up with other growers in particular. When we do circle, it's usually involving like different strains that we might be working on or different growing techniques that we might have implied during this particular grow. I just enjoy the fact that we've all made it so far, and that I can recognize the triumphs and the tribulations in another individual when I'm circled up with them, especially farmers. I really don't like to call it stoner etiquette just because I think it implies like a deadening or a loss of touch or something when we call it that. And also the word weed almost gives it a meaning that's not uplifting and upful. So I try and speak on it as cannabis or marijuana, and the etiquette that should be honored is appreciation of the individual that you're with, yourself and the plant. I believe that those should be at the forefront of any circle or any gathering. I don't think it's so important which way you pass the joint or which way you ash or bowl or whatever the thing might be. And I also think that etiquette changes from area to area and for an individual as they grow. For instance, you mature, and so your etiquette as an 18-year-old might be different than somebody who's 45. So I just think it's really just adhering to where you are, where you come from, and honoring the plant and the people you're with.
You are listening to Culture Interrupted.
I think Prop 64 is actually pulling away from the culture here in California. I've seen a lot of people turn against each other, not directly, but up around my ranch, a lot of people were turned in by other neighbors, me being one. I'd already entered into the permit process here in Sonoma County, for a 1 acre permit in Cazadero, but some of the neighbors didn't know that. So the county got called, and of course I got put under the microscope and a lot of scrutiny on me about my buildings and different things. So in a way, I feel like the culture is totally evaporating because the things that we used to all uphold, like privacy and strength, and no one used to narc on each other. And if you did, it was a major issue. You were kicked out of the community immediately. I can say that my relationship to Prop 64 is different now than when I first heard about it. Yeah, I wanted it legal. I thought this is what we've all deserved and been working for. And, I had no idea really about what I see now in terms of bureaucracy and just people turning against each other like I was speaking on. That was a big letdown. Instead of forming like farmers alliances and these kind of things, people are just becoming separate. The margins used to be so big, it didn't really matter, to think about the dollar, the end result. I am a businessman and I have other businesses that I am involved in. So to me, business is about making everybody happy in the deal. So whenever I'm in a situation where I'm up against something like a challenge of a price, or I'm dealing with a vendor that might not really understand where I'm coming from, I just try and figure out the best medium, and I'd like to see the deal go through. If there's something that I can't process or relate with the person that's just totally absurd, then I'll usually walk out. But that being said, being a family man, the dollar and the margins are very important now. But as long as your message is being represented for us at Roots and Harmony Farms, it's organics, way of life, and community building. As long as we're doing that, and the people we're working with, then we're happy. So I have a 1 acre permit application in with Sonoma County for my farm in Cazadero. I was lucky to have a budget that could afford an attorney to deal with it, because it really is way over my head, particularly I'm not too interested in the bureaucracy of that stuff, and never have been one to follow those kind of things. So having to adapt into that, I've needed to hire people to help me do it. It's very expensive. It was almost $17,000 just for the application fee. That doesn't even approve you. And then to hire an attorney was, the fee that we were set. The taxes for an outdoor acre are $2 a square foot. That totals almost $90,000 I paid the county this year. And, that's a lot of money. It doesn't matter how much you harvest, how much you grow, what kind of prices you're getting per pound. It doesn't matter. They still get their $2 a square foot. And that being said, it's just set up in a way to make any small guy fail. It's almost impossible unless you can produce your pounds for, I want to say 300 or less. It really is, because we have been selling our pounds at 500 and less this year, because there's so much marijuana available. It's a third of what we received last year. I was getting 14 and 1,500 for my outdoor.
You are listening to Culture Interrupted.
No, I don't think that we're getting the tools that we need. And yes, I feel like I'm one of the people that should be getting those tools. Again, I feel like the tools really are going to be all of us farmers coming together and working together as one, as an alliance, where there's different factions. So like my area in Cazadero, or maybe Sonoma County, will have an alliance, growers alliance, and different regions will be able to do that, so that we can set prices and we can also buy in bulk together, and just ways that we can make it through this transition. Because in the next 4 or 5 years, when corporate comes in, it's going to be really tough. And I believe that that's going to be the breaking point, is if we can actually come together. Make it a breaking point is if we can come together. Big business is really here already, even though they're not supposed to. We're supposed to have a 5-year window where we can establish ourselves as growers before corporate's here, but they are finding ways to come in, and they're coming in with promises and this and that. Some of it's true, some of it's not true, but they're not after anything but a dollar. They have no interest in our community or where we even come from, or our values as a group. And that's totally a disgrace, because that's what made this that's what made marijuana. So I feel like in the next 5 years we're going to see corporate takeover of all areas of California, and I believe that the family farmer is not going to be even competing. Yes, I've been offered a few different deals. I have a consulting company that I started 3 years ago, and I was doing the trade shows, and I've been up into Washington and different states and helping out different outfits up there. So I got a taste and touch of what's happening with corporate takeover, and I felt like my intellectual property was being taken from me and not valued in a way that should have been, and I felt really manipulated from the beginning. So I was able to see that, and for me, I was told something by my father that I think is really important today. It wasn't so much so when he told me originally that when you teach somebody what you know, you're creating competition for yourself. And back when we first were growing marijuana, 25, 30 years ago, it was really important to have another guy or two because there was strength in numbers. It wasn't just about yourself. It was just about getting the plant to the people and growing enough of it too. It just was safer the more people that were doing it. So we shared information, we shared techniques, and nowadays that's not happening as much because there's a sense of disrespect, by corporations or people that are coming in. Somebody offered to buy my farm this year and then hire me as the brand ambassador and to run it. And it was very tempting, because when you're looking at all the paperwork and all the logistics of trying to become legal, it's pretty daunting and scary. So to shoulder that all on my own has been, it's been stressful, very stressful.
You are listening to Culture Interrupted.
One of the positive things that I think we were all shooting for with legalization, with Prop 64, I believe that now that it's legal, there's going to be much more research granted. We'll be able to come up with different delivery systems. Instead of just smoking cannabis, you'll be seeing more patches, you'll be seeing some mist sprays. It will just be a little bit more individual as well. I'm thinking they'll be able to figure out what varietals might be, our terpenes or what have you, will be working in terms of healing different ailments. So delivery methods and more specific delivery systems. We can look at the beer industry and the wine industry. There's just a consumer-driven thing that happens, and it's about price points for people. You work all week, and if you can buy a bottle for $20 of wine versus 400, you're going to go for that $20 bottle because you might need that other 380 for something important. And so I think there's going to be a lot of weed that will be like the Budweiser of Bud, but I still think that the education's there for people to know, and I think that the want and need is there for people to get higher end boutique, if you will, marijuana. I think that the black market defines the price right now. This year is defining the price because the availability of marijuana is there, but legal marijuana is not. So we all that have permits have to work with each other. We can't work outside of that, so the black market's not available. And there's not a lot of permits that were given out here in Sonoma County. So with that restriction on legal marijuana, it's driven the price of the black market up, and people are selling it for as much as $1,200, $1,300 per pound. I think in 5 years it will probably have balanced out. I believe that the rules will be set, the state will figure out how to imply those rules, and I think that there'll be more money for sussing out the black market growers. I'd like to see us move outside of the petrochemical extraction methods. I'm really not happy with that. I never have been. I tried making my own honey oil as a kid, and I never liked the residue or the flavor that was left after. And I'm not objected to having a stronger medicinal experience with marijuana. It's just that petrochemicals and medicine just don't mix. They just don't mix. So the market sets the trends, the consumer. Now the state's stepping in. So that's good because they're setting up regulatory systems that check for pesticides and different things that ensure the quality and the structure is there for the end user. I hope that there's a nice fine blend between the state and the end user.
You are listening to Culture Interrupted.
I'll just say people that are using petrochemicals or any kind of chemicals to provide medicine, whether you're a farmer and you're using some pesticide that's illegal or not organic, are detrimental to the health of your area, whether that's a bumblebee or your water system. I just believe that's bad. And again, like I said, the petrochemical extraction methods there just needs to be a different option. People will know more about how the medicine's grown. I would really enjoy having the medical community and the scientific community come together with us growers and us consumers to create more dialogue to further this. I've been approached by a couple different groups. One was a medical group looking for different applications for a couple different diseases and viruses. And nothing fruited out of that for me particularly, but it was nice to be called on that project. I've had other projects in Australia and South Africa interested in what I do as a breeder and grower. Most recently, I've had a company out of the United States that's doing a genetic mapping of where cannabis is today and where it's come from. I see that the more that this is becoming accepted as a culture, we're becoming more mainstream and more talked about, even in middle America, if you will, let me use that term. There's curiosity about marijuana now coming from people like my parents, and now they're open to it. My mother has used salves, which I thought would never even be something she'd be open to. She was very much afraid of marijuana when I was a kid. I believe that we also are seeing, like teachers in situations that might have chemotherapy be open to taking something like marijuana versus a chemo drug to help them either with appetite or in combination, at least being open to it. That's going to be nice to see the opening of the possibilities happen for people, mentally shift. The more we understand organic lifestyles like eating and smoking and living, it's going to be very important to us as a planet in general. And the more we put an emphasis on organics, the better quality life we'll all live and future generations. I think that's one of the most important points that me personally as a grower has tried to put forward in my mission statement with Roots and Harmony Farms and all the various other things I'm interested in. Cannabis and the wine industry, especially in Sonoma County, are run hand in hand, and I believe that we can follow the trends that are going on with the wine industry right here, right now, in terms of corporate takeover, and see how it might affect us as cannabis growers, and try to mitigate the outcomes of failure that they're seeing. I know a couple smaller vineyards that are being pushed out, award-winning vineyards, are not going to be able to make it in the next 5 years. I feel that the wine industry and the beer industry are good watching posts, like would you say the canary in the coal mine. You can see what's happening, what's trending, and where people are hurting and where people are excelling. And with those, you can make some answers, I think, to actually make it through this. I will say, just not knowing what was going to happen with Prop 64, I was a huge proponent of legalization from the very first time I've ever smoked. I just believed in it because it just was such a natural, pure medicine that worked for me and a lot of other people that I knew, that it just felt weird that it would be withheld from us. So I'm happy that everything's legal, but I'm really unhappy with the way I've seen the reaction within our community to the legalization. Like I said, there's just a loss of team, there's a loss of family. It's becoming more and more segregated and cutthroat. And that's because it's all dollar driven instead of heart driven, like where we come from, where I come from.
We appreciate you making the time to listen to Culture Interrupted.